Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus A330 pilot, and welcome to our next flight in the IndyBuilds Airbus A330 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Today we're flying from Zurich to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport in the Swiss Airbus A330-300 equipped with Rolls-Royce engines. Join me on the way in as we are boarding through door 2 left today and making our way up to the flight deck. So a quick walk through the business class will lead us where every single one of us wants to go. And of course, on a small note over here, Swiss in the real world also has a first class in the aircraft. Unfortunately, this is currently not simulated in the cabin, but instead we have the standard business class 222 layout that we find on many Airbus A330 aircraft. Now let's get over into the cockpit, and from there we can start our pre-flight preparation. In general, we do expect a flight time of about 8 hours and 10 minutes with a total block time of around 8 hours and 30 minutes. So this is going to be a quick ride over. Now let's go ahead and download our SimBrief data, and in the meantime I am going to start preparing our aircraft for service. So starting with the preliminary cockpit preparation, engine masters off, engine start selector norm. In terms of the weather radar, we have the ground control system on and weather and turbulence selected. Tilt initially something to 5 degrees up and the gain is calibrated. Landing gear lever is down, the wipers are both off, and the batteries have more than 25.5 volts each. So let's go ahead and turn the batteries on, and then we can also turn the external power units on so that we get AC power applied to our aircraft. Now let's give it a little while, and while the aircraft is booting up, we can go right into the electronic flight bag and into the operational flight plan. So that's our plan for the day. Zurich to New York Kennedy, departure 0850 on the Swiss flight 16. And if we stroll down a little bit, we can have a look into the weather conditions for the flight today. So for our departure airport in Zurich, we've got a wind of 08084 and overcast clouds in 1700, 1 degree QNH 1028, and our destination, New York, John F. Kennedy Airport, has some gusty winds today, and according to the forecast it's pretty much going to be like that all day long. Our first alternate, Boston, on the other hand side, is looking pretty similar, so overall some rough day at the US East Coast. Now, all of that in mind, I don't think we will really need to anticipate a go around. However, I want to be on the safe side here and just take fuel for half an hour extra just in case. So looking into the trip plan today, half an hour, as you can see, is roughly 2.2 tons. So 51 is our minimum takeoff, then we have 500 taxi, so if we make that 53 plus maybe a ton more, so 54 tons of fuel should be just about fine. Now going all the way to the top, that means if everything goes right, we've got a landing weight increased by 4 tons, so we are well within the maximum landing weight, we are well within the maximum takeoff weight of the aircraft, so all of this comes together nicely. Now let's go ahead with our aircraft setup. We now do have some electrical power applied, but let's go ahead and do the APU fire test straight away so that we can turn on the APU in order to get some air conditioning going. So APU master on, APU starter on, here we go, and then the IRSs can come on as well. I will leave the cockpit lights turned on because it is rather dark over here, and well, they don't hurt anyone, do they? So let's go ahead and accept our aircraft for service. That's a recall, pressed for at least 3 seconds, and there's nothing in there. Very good. In terms of the logbook MEL items, I don't have anything there today. Aircraft configuration summary, we have Rolls-Royce engines. We do have automatic nav on go around fitted to the aircraft. We do not have an eGPWS today, we only have standard GPWS, so that's something to take into account. Apart from that, in terms of OEBs, we do have 3 OEBs today. Number 30, incorrect vertical profile during non-precision approaches. OEB number 33, pack flow monitoring, and OEB 57, which is the only one that's really interesting for today's flight. That is cabin pressure, excess cabin altitude. And to go over that OEB for the moment, if the cabin pressure, excess cabin altitude warning shows on the ECAM, we will apply the ECAM procedure even if we cannot confirm the indication on the cabin pressure SD page. So normally you should see a loss of cabin pressurization down here as well, but due to a possible computer fault, we will apply the procedure at all times, even if we just get the warning up here, independent of what is shown down here. So even if this shows the cabin altitude is fine, if we get the warning up here, we will apply the procedure. Alright, and that is our aircraft accepted for service. Then let's go ahead and run a little bit of preliminary data. So going down to the payload, we can import this from SimBrief. Then we are going to apply 54 tons of fuel. And they do usually load up a little bit more, so let's make it 54,100. And then apply the load, and we can do that one instantly, please. So onto the takeoff page. Synchronize the weather data. We are departing Zurich's runway 32 today. And in terms of our takeoff weight, let's see what we have here. We're looking at 210.6, so let's calculate 211 tons. So 211, config 2, air conditioning off. We don't need anti-ice today, though we will probably need it once we're in the air. So let's hit calculate here and see what we're about to get. Flex 50, performance limited at 242 tons. Very good. So then, before we head out for the walk around, oxygen pressure is checked, hydraulic quantities are checked, engine oil quantity is checked. It's not quite full, it could be a little bit more, but sufficient for our flight today. So let's get rid of that again. Okay, the flaps are in agreement with the lever, the ground spoilers are retracted. Then let's test the brakes. So park and brake coming off. Alright, brake pressure is looking good, and then the park and brake is coming right back on again. Okay, and that's our preliminary cockpit preparation completed, so follow me out for the walk around. I really like the default camera position here, starting right at the static ports, which is the first check on the walk around, making sure that there are no obstructions to that. And then we can walk down over here, have a quick look into the external power access panel, making sure that there's nothing in there that's not supposed to be there. The nose gear is looking good, so going out, AOA probes are alright. The doors are undamaged, and the pitot tubes, the TAT probe, and the ice detectors are all looking good down here. And the front of the nose landing gear is looking good as well, with no sign of damages. Right, then let's move around the aircraft and get to the nose, where we don't see any damages today. And then again, we got a couple probes that we are checking on the side over here, and the oxygen discharge disc, which should show green. Alright, if the front hold is open, careful look outside to make sure that we're not run over by anything. Cargo door is looking good, the static ports are okay, and then we can get down to the belly. Air inlets are looking good, the beacon is looking good, and everything is okay over here. Leading edge is fine, and our Rolls-Royce Trent 700 engine is in a very good shape. No damages, no sign of any stones or anything, or oil leaking. Overall, in a very good condition. Let's have a look into the combined exhaust as well. Why combined? Because you've got the air that goes through the hot section of the turbine, and then you've got the bypass air coming out of the same duct, which is something that you don't see too often nowadays, but the Trent 700 engines do have that feature. Moving out around the aircraft then, we can immediately see that we forgot to turn on the lights, but well, gotta live with that for now. Quick look down here, making sure that that white truss is visible, and then we can move along the aft part of the wing, inspecting our flap track fairings and the flaps themselves, making sure that there is no damage to any of those. Leading down to the main wheels, we do check for any kind of damage over here. We also check for the brake wear indicator pins, making sure that they are not flush with the metal just yet. Likewise, everything over here is looking good, and there's no sign of a bird strike. The same goes for the tires over here, and then we can move further to the back. Again, close look at the cargo areas, making sure that there are no damages over here, and then we get to the back of the aircraft. So, the leading edges are looking good. We have a quick look inside the blowout panel over here. APU area is looking good. Once again, I forgot the lights, so that's why we don't see anything there. And then we're moving up to the front of the aircraft. Leading edge is looking good. And going up to the front, a quick look into the outflow valve. And that's everything alright over there. Then getting to the back of the wing, once again we check the condition of the tires, the brake wear indicator pins, the general conditions for any fluid leaking, anything that might look out of the ordinary. Also make sure that there are no gear pins fitted anywhere over here, as that would significantly shorten today's duty. And probably result in tea without biscuits, but that's a different point. So our wing is in a good condition. All the way out to the winglet. Everything is looking perfect. Then a look in here, we see the white cross, and then moving all the way to the front. One more engine to inspect, and then we're back inside. Now the challenge always is to have the walk around done before the passengers are boarding, because that means you don't have to get yourself through the huge influx of passengers and don't have to walk against the typical direction that you will see applied. So today our engine is looking very good, no sort of damages. The entire airplane is in a very good shape, just like I would expect from the Swiss Precision. So let's get right back into our cockpit and start our cockpit preparation procedure. IRS alignment has finished already, as we can see, which is very good. And then I suppose we are starting right up here. So refueling is finished, we can turn the signs on. APU bleed is coming on as well. Fuel pumps on, and then we can do the engine fire test. Looks good, and over here on the right hand side, not all that much we gotta do, except that we are gonna dial up the PA down there, like that. Alright, moving down to the main panel, let's go ahead and take a look at the latest weather conditions. 120 at 3, 2 degrees, QNH 1029er. Here we go, 1029 is in, everything set down here, clock into GPS mode. There's really no reason to put this onto the set button at all. Alright, and everything's set up there. Then, frequencies are going to be 1 to 2.8 and 1 to 1.5. Pretty much like that. Listening to VHF 1, listening to VHF 2, listening to the interphone, and well, we don't really need the cabin PAs, do we? Okay, squawk is going to be 2000 in the absence of anything else. Above is selected, transponder standby number 1, and altitude reporting on. Alright, you are supposed to do your thing yourself, but nonetheless, let's just go ahead and bring it up like that. Okay. Well then, let's go ahead and start with our FMS setup. Normally we'd start on the ATSU initializing the flight, but unfortunately that is not simulated here, so let's go right into the FMS. And that's going to be via data onto the aircraft status, A330-300, trend engines, current database, delete any previously stored waypoint, and then acknowledge and remove any scratch pad messages. So onto the init request. And then let's see, we've got Zurich to JFK, alternate Boston, Swiss. Well, that call time is wrong, it should be Swiss 16 Foxtrot. That's why we do these checks. Airport not in database. No clue why. We'll ignore that for now. Okay, Costa next 20, flight level 340. I have a feeling we are going to climb higher than that though, but let's see. Okay, Webit departure, so let's go ahead and collect our charts. So, Zurich, and we have the departures of runway 32 for the time being. Then let's find the sits. I do believe we got to look at the ANA 5 sits here. And I'm wrong. Let's try the ANA 1 sit chart then. In the real world it's easier. In the real world they're named after the procedures they're following. That makes our life much easier. Okay, Webit for November, here it is. So that's gonna be the sit of choice. Alright, Zurich, departure, 3-2. And here we go, Webit for November. Insert. Now let's go ahead and pin that one, and then we can move on to our arrival into New York. And at the moment they say runway 31 left, or runway 31 right. Now, for the time I'm just going to select the ILS onto 31 left, but we'll see about it later on. Departure 3, and we are coming in from Plym if I'm not mistaken, but let's go ahead and have a look. Indeed, departure 3 out of Plym. Okay, we don't need any VIA for the time being. Insert. And then time to have a look at what we have just entered. So, plan mode selected, and then let's see. We go initially on the runway track towards 1810 feet, then a right-hand turn, Zulu Hotel 580 above 3500. And that's for 4-engine aircraft only. No, that does not matter for us. That's 4-engine only. Okay, left turn, 210 knots towards Zulu Hotel 577. And indeed, we have that one. And thereafter, towards Brago above 5,000, 554 above 6,000, 558 above 7,000, and then on towards Webit. And of course we don't need that discontinuity down there. Now that's this part. Let's continue with the secondary, where we are going to copy the active. And then let's continue with our engine outset. So, data, next, stored waypoints, and then runway 32, straight ahead to 3 dB Cloten, proceed right onto radial 335 Cloten, at 6.5 dB right onto Zurich East and hold. Okay, so let's call it Clo 03, and that is going to be 3 dB Kilo Lima Oscar. Okay, so looking at this, we don't really have the position of the VOR. So I tell you what, we are going to make it 3 miles off the runway. That just makes it easier. 32 slash 314 slash 3 miles. Right, store that one. So that's Clo 3. New waypoint. So now we proceed to radial 335 to 6.5 dB. So we can take Kilo Lima Oscar slash 335 slash 6.5, and we should have given that a name first. So Kilo Lima Oscar 06, and that's going to be Kilo Lima Oscar slash 335 slash 6.5. Not in database. Okay, let's try without the decimal. So slash 6, and surprise, now it's in here. Okay, store that, and thereafter it's going to be a right-hand turn to Zurich East to hold. So let's go ahead and enter that. We have Kilo Lima Oscar 03, in here. Then we have Kilo Lima Oscar 06 in here. And finally back to Zulu Uniform Echo. Okay, hold over there. We can take the present as inbound and 1 minute lag time. That's just fine. So after the holding, if we need to, we make it an immediate return. And they do have the ILS approach to runway 34 available at the moment. So that's the one I am going to select in here, just because it is the longest runway available. Alright, insert that, and here we go. And then for the fix info page, let's insert runway 32 on a 314 radial. And then we have close 03. Or I'll tell you what, we can make that easier. Kilo Lima Oscar, in here. And we want a 3-mile ring. And then we also want Kilo Lima Oscar with a 6-mile ring. Like that. And last but not least, Zulu Uniform Echo. And with that we've got all 4 fix pages filled. We don't really need any nav aids. We can insert our departure runway into here and then onto the init page. So our zero fuel weight today is going to be 156.6. And since we don't have a CG yet, we'll take 25. 54 tons of fuel. Average wind component is a headwind of 6 knots. Like that. And now let's go ahead and have a look at the fuel figures. So contingency 1.4, alternate 3.5, final 2.2. So 1.4, 3.5, and 2. What did I say? 2.2. Well, it's automatically figured that. Okay, taxi 0.5, and then let's go ahead and do a wind request. So back onto the legs page then. Let's start with our step climbs. So what do we have? Flight level 360 at Romeo Lima Papa. Different than in ours. Okay, and thereafter flight level 380 at Aluta. And that's probably gonna be it. I don't think I will be doing the climb to flight level 400. But just for the sake of it, let's enter it. So that's gonna be 4450 north, 400. Okay. And with that in mind, let's do one more wind request so that it actually gets us the correct flight levels as well. Well, pretty much like we have them now. Okay. So, let's check. Extra fuel is still negative. Well, why did it change the reserves again? Changed everything again. Okay, we'll do that one more time. 1.4. 3.5. And 2.2 is okay. And we just disregard this. Because I am 100% sure that we are correct on the fuel. Unless we mixed up the digits, which I do not believe we did. No, we are definitely fine in terms of fuel. And to be honest, for an 8-hour ride, something like 54 tons seems absolutely sensible, so let's stick with it. There's got to be something wrong in the math in here. So, for the takeoff, we are looking at a config 2 takeoff. 211 tons seems correct to me, so conv 2. Flex temperature should be 50. And our takeoff speeds 41, 44, 48. Like that. And last but not least, the acceleration is going to be for noise abatement procedure number 1, so 4,400. Engine out acceleration in 2,900, which is 1,500 AGL. Last but not least, 210 tons, so we'll use D-rate 1. And that should be our FMS preparation completed for the time being. Now, let's continue with our FCU. Flight directors on, initial climb to 5,000. And something like this should work just fine. Alright, so that's our standard stuff completed. Now, since we are flying North Atlantic, we do still need to do the waypoint check. So let's go over this real quick down here and find our North Atlantic points. So here we go. Now what we do over here is to verify that the coordinates shown for those waypoints match what is in our flight plan. So Omoko 4850.3, 12 west, and then 4815N equals 48 north, 15 west. We check that there is no half coordinates and no stuff like that anywhere in here. And now we do the same for any of the other waypoints, verifying that the coordinates match what we're expecting. That way we can exclude any database errors which might have fatal consequences, since there is no radar available across the North Atlantic. Alright, and with all of that checked, let's go ahead and start our departure briefing, please. Are you ready for the briefing? Yes, excellent. Okay, so let's give it a go. Zurich, runway 32, full length available. Vapid for November departure, climbing initially 5,000 feet. The MSA is a little bit split here. We're looking at an initial 5,600 and later in the departure sector 4,500 feet in there. Extra fuel, well, we should have around 2,000 kilos extra, giving us roughly half an hour. Excellent. I don't see any hotspots for the taxi. Stop margin for rejected takeoff is not too much. Engine out sits straight at to 3.5 dm Cloten, then join the radial 335 until 6.5, and thereafter direct to Zurich East, and we are climbing 7,000 feet. We do have that on the secondary flight plan visible over here, followed by an immediate return onto an ILS approach runway 34, which is the longest runway available. Now, Zurich is our best option in the area, even though we have the terrain. The approach area will be pretty clear. Weather itself is good as well, with almost calm winds. Just a little cold, so I do prefer to make it to our destination, but I suppose that's going to be out of our hands. Special operation, we have the 210 knot restriction on our SID, so that means we cannot retract the flaps completely. If we look down here, clean speed 233, slat retraction at 192. That means we can retract the flaps into the 1 position, but we'll have to keep them there until we are clear of the 210 knot restriction. I don't have any non-standards today. Do you see any threats for the departure? Well, suppose terrain is a little bit of a threat. What can we do about it? Well, MSA awareness is key, so we will try to remember 5,600 on the extended center line, and 4,500 in the north, and 4,500 in the southwest. And that's it. You have any comments or suggestions on the briefing? No? Okay. Wonderful. In that case, let's go ahead with the cockpit preparation checklist, please. Gear pits and covers removed. Fuel quantity. We have 54,020 kilogram balanced. Seatbelts on, ADRs nav, barrel rev, QNH 1029er. Cockpit preparation checklist complete, and then we can follow up with the NUT HLA checklist as well. So that's aircraft acceptance, ETOPS PDSC checked, clock, RVSM equipment checked, clock in GPS mode checked, HF checked, message log erased, ADSC armed, ATC auto position report off, IRS full alignment performed, ground speed checked 0, NUT HLA waypoints on OFP versus primary flight plan cross-checked, wind data entered, NUT HLA guideline complete down to oceanic entry. Okay, so that much for our setup for the time being. By now, we should have boarding completed, so let's go ahead, tell GSX to prepare our position for pushback and departure, please. And then we are going to say hello to our passengers. We don't need de-icing treatment here, the weather is good enough for that. Liebe Fluggäste, einen schönen guten Morgen aus dem Cockpit. Hier spricht Ihr Kapitän. Mein Name ist Emanuel. Im Namen der Swiss darf ich Sie herzlich an Bord unseres Fluges 16 nach New York willkommen heißen. Die heutige Flugzeit wurde mit 8 Stunden und 10 Minuten berechnet in einer Reiseflughöhe von ca. 38.000 Fuß. Wir bedanken uns, dass Sie heute Ihre Gäste sind, wünschen Ihnen einen schönen Aufenthalt und gegebenenfalls eine gute und unterhaltende Bordunterhaltung. Und wenn es etwas gibt, womit wir Ihnen den Flug schöner gestalten können, zögern Sie nicht, sich an unsere Flugbegleiter zu wenden. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from flight deck. This is your captain speaking. My name is Emanuel. In the name of Swiss, welcome aboard flight 16 to New York John F. Kennedy Airport. We wish you a very nice day on board, good entertainment, and we will get back to you with the latest weather conditions at New York once we're on the approach. Thank you very much for your attention, and again, welcome aboard. Alright, that's our passengers dealt with. Then I suppose we're going to start with our load sheet. So, let's see what we've got. 156.6, 26.5. Okay, and that results in a takeoff weight of 210.2, which is okay. So 28.8 versus 28.8, excellent. So 3.1 is going to be our trim. And here we go. Okay, excellent. So the bulk is still open. In the meantime, they can remove the external power units and close the bulk as well. Here we go. Wonderful. So 211 tons is fine. That's on the slightly conservative side. I'm happy with that. All right. So, the table can go away. Ground from cockpit. Go ahead. So, please confirm all doors and hatches are closed, ground equipment is removed, and the bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed. We're waiting for your clear signal. Thank you. Okay, before start checklist, below the line, please. Park and brake. Set. Takeoff speeds and thrust. V1 141, VR 144, V2 148, flex 50. Windows. Closed, beacon on, before start checklist complete. So, ground flight. Push start approved facing east, park brake set. Okay, release brakes. Park and brake released. Roger, start the push, stand by for engine start. Roger. Okay, off we go, 0910. So that is half an hour late, which is unfortunate, but we are just doing things realistically here, aren't we? Right, waiting to get clear of the line down here so that we can commence our engine start. And honestly, the more I look at it, the more beautiful the A330 looks, doesn't it? I'm just a huge fan of this aircraft. I'm so incredibly happy that I have the opportunity to fly it now. And that's both in the real world as well as in the sim. Okay, ground flight. We are starting engines 1 and 2 in that sequence. Engine 1 start. Okay, and we have a good start on 1, starting engine 2. Clear 2. Engine 2 start. Push complete, set brakes. Park brake set, and you're clear to lower the aircraft, remove all equipment, and advise when clear please. Stand by for engine start. So, number 2 is coming up. Fuel flow is a little bit high over here, should be more something around 300-400 kilos while the engine is starting, and only later than around 700 kilos when it's on idle. Apart from that though, you barely hear the engines in the cockpit, and that is actually correct. That's how it is on the real A330 as well. We have 2 good engine starts. Clear to disconnect, show me the pin on the left, and have a wonderful day. Grüezi. Alright, there is our pin. After start checklist, please. Anti-ice, off, income status checked, pitch trim. What's that? 28.8%. Rudder trim. Neutral. After start checklist complete. Flight control check. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Rudder. Full left. Full right, neutral. Okay, clear on the left side and clear on the right side. Let's go. So, normally the airplane should start rolling on its own here without the need for any power. In the sim it looks like we do need just a tiny bit to get it moving. Brake check. Pressure 0. Well, fair enough. This is really almost nothing, but look at the fuel flow. That seems a bit excessive right now. Okay, we don't need to de-ice, so we can go straight to the runway, which is fairly easy. Straight ahead, left-hand turn, and then we're already there. Let me show you that on the charts as well. So we're down here, we go straight ahead until Kilo, left into Hotel 3 to hold short of the runway. Okay, I do not have any changes to the departure briefing. Do you have anything? No? Okay. So we're just waiting for the cabin to become ready then. Oh, and here they are. That was timing. Okay, taxi checklist. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, conv 2. Radar and predictive wind shear, on and auto. Engine start selector, norm, ECA memo, takeoff, no blue. Taxi checklist, complete. So, next up is going to be Kilo. We go to the left over here, and then we're already at our departure runway. And just while we have a moment, I really appreciate how superb this looks. This is just completely incredible, isn't it? Superb scenery, both in the airport as well as the immediate surrounding there. Alright then, Swiss 16 Foxtrot, line up runway 32 and wait. So a little bit of power to keep the airplane moving in the turn here. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. So that is runway 32 on the full length identified. Lineup checklist. Takeoff runway 32 full length. TCAS, TARA, PAX 1 and 2 off. Lineup checklist complete. Are you ready? Cleared for takeoff. Timing. Takeoff. Manflex 50 SRS auto thrust blue. Thrust set. .100 knots, checked. V1, rotate. Positive climb, gear up. Nav, checked. Thrust, decline 1, auto thrust. Pack 1 on. So 3,500 Obo Zulu Hotel 580, we will be able to make that. Engine anti-ice on. Engine anti-ice is on. So we did make the 3,500 restriction there easily. And then Swiss 16 Foxtrot Heavy identified. Climb via SID flight level 140. which is set. So, finally reaching the acceleration altitude, climb. No. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Now, passing 200 knots indicated airspeed, you will notice how the flaps are automatically going to retract from position 1 plus F into position 1 in order to increase the maximum speed to 240 knots. You can see that right now. Flaps are coming in. And then over at 577, and we are rid of the speed restriction. Wonderful. Flap 0. Speed checked. Flaps 0. Autopilot 1. Out of the clouds. Beautiful. That's what I've been waiting for. We're above the MSA, so we don't need to worry about the mountains, and now that we can see them, we don't need to worry about them anymore anyway. Very good. Engine anti-ice off? Or are we still going into that? I think we'll be just clear. Engine anti-ice off. Alright, excellent. Then we shouldn't have any problems with the altitude restrictions along the SID any longer. The only one that was difficult to meet was the 3,500. Is that standard? Standard cross-check, passing flight level 70 now. Checked. Well, well, so far so excellent. So, let's see if there is any good direct we might get. I'd say direct to Lazun sounds quite good to me. We are clear of any of those restrictions here, so let's do it. Direct to Lazun. Quick check. Terrain display is inoperative as we have previously discussed. So, can we see anything of the Alps? Nope, all hidden underneath the clouds. But well, so be it. So, 10,000, but let's do the important stuff first. Here we go. That's the important stuff done. So, then climbing flight level 200, and then I'd say we can release our passengers. Clear and copy, please. Okay, nothing on the radio nav page. Optimum flight level 361. Well, then I'd tend to say we go flight level 360 straight away. No sense to stay down low. So, alt cruise flight level 360 blue. New cruise out, flight level 360. And a quick check down at the step out page. This one can go then. Oh, and that messed up the rest of the page. Lovely. Right, let's make it easy and just reinsert those. So we have 380 at Aluta. And then 400 at 50 West, so 4450N. $400. Okay. So let's see. Estimated arrival time 1803. Scheduled 1805. Well, how much extra fuel do we need for going a little bit faster? Costinix 300, 2.3 tons. Well, let's take something in the middle. I don't know, for now we have 1803 and 2.8. Let's see, Costinix 80. Huh, looks like it's not updating those calculations here. That's of course a bug in the software. But I think you get where we are going with this. So we will just fly a little bit faster there, but let's not make it too much. Something around Mach 0.82 should be just about fine. Alright, so any other good direct? Well, suppose Torpa, then we don't need to fly that little left turn there. So direct to Torpa and insert. Looking wonderful. So, I really think that's everything I can show you for now. From here on, it is going to be a little bit more silent. We can do a couple more entries into the system, such as the North Atlantic waypoints, so why not just do those as well. You can find down here in the flight plan on the EDTO summary. So you can see we're entering via Shannon, then we've got Shannon and Lajes, and later on Lajes and Gander is where we exit the North Atlantic as well. So why not just do those real quick, then we have them out of the way already. That's going to be stored waypoint, new waypoint, ETOPS entry. Well, in the real world we'd call it like this, ETOPS entry point 1. Unfortunately the sim has a couple of issues with that, so we'll call it entry 1, something like that. Alright, and those coordinates are going to be 4736.6 and the west coordinate 01706.2. Okay, store that. Then, new waypoint. Next up is going to be the equal time point between Shannon and Lajes, so that's going to be SNN, which is the IATA code of Shannon, and then Lajes is going to be Tango Echo Romeo. Which it apparently doesn't want to take. That's a bug as well, of course. So let's call it ETP1, if it understands that language. 47054. And 01935.7. Alright, and we take that. So then we can take a new waypoint, ETP2, as we have two equal time points. That one is going to be between Lajes and Gander, and that's going to be 4501.4. and 03950.6. Alright, store that one, and last but not least, we've got the first exit, so we'll call it exit 1. And that one's gonna be at 4447.4. And 4303.9. Alright, that's all the waypoints stored. Then let's go ahead and enter them in the fix info page. So we've got entry 1. Then we've got... Well, that was strange. Let's try that again. So we have entry 1. Then we've got ETP1. Then we have ETP2. And finally we've got exit 1. Now let's have a quick look at the plan page to make sure that those waypoints we have just created are actually on the flight plan. Okay, so we've got the first entry over here, just past 15 degrees west. And then we've got our first ETP just prior 20 west. Second ETP at round about 40 west. And the exit is just after that. All of those are on the flight plan, so they are nicely marked. Wonderful. So this is going really well. Then let's take a small moment and check some weather. So we've got Echo India November November. Search. And Shannon has good weather, runway 06 in use. Then LPLA. Search. Lajes, good conditions. The wind measurement device is out of service for years already over there, so nothing to worry about. And then Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, X-ray. And as we can see, for the time being, Gander is good as well. A little low overcast, but by the time we get there, things will look quite a bit different anyway. Alright, and that is pretty much anything we could do for now. Let's give ourselves one more direct so that we don't fly all these strange turns over here. Let's go direct to, let's say Cora over there, or direct to Resmi. Resmi is always a good point in France. You get that a lot. So, direct to Resmi. Over here, everything is looking good. I'm actually thinking about just climbing to flight level 380 straight away. If you look at where the optimum is, by the time we reach our top of climb, that'll be around 368 or so. And honestly, going level for 20 minutes, not really worth it, huh? So I tell you what, let's go flight level 380. So I'll cruise flight level 380 blue, new cruise alt, flight level 380. Surprise! That's something I really like about the A330. The plane just gets you very high, very quick. So you can really outclimb a lot of the other traffic that you might find along the North Atlantic airspace. In any case, that is what I can offer you for now. So I tend to say, let's enjoy the beautiful views outside, and I see you all as we're getting a little bit closer to our destination airport. We're approaching Cape Cod, and that means it's just about time to start our arrival preparation for New York's JFK airport. But let's just take a moment over here to appreciate how beautiful this actually looks. For me, it's always a highlight overflying Cape Cod in the real world, because first of all it means you've made it, you're there in the US, but also because this is just one of those beautiful looking landscape areas. Of course, looking over onto the other side, that means we'll have Boston in the background, hidden underneath the clouds at the moment, and most importantly, it means it's time for dinner before we start our approach preparation. Now, approach preparation is a good point over here. The top of descent is not all that far out, 60 miles now. So let's go ahead and have a look into the latest weather conditions for our arrival into New York. The wind is now 250 at 29, gusting 37, so that's most definitely one of those little more interesting conditions. Let's quickly check our alternate as well, which is Boston. And Boston reports 250 at 16, gust 29. Okay then, let's go ahead and have a look at the arrival charts, provided that the chart providers are working this time. So, JFK charts, and indeed it looks like they are showing the Zurich charts right now. Here we go, chart provider is once again empty. Okay, so these things are still bugged in the sim, unfortunately. If we switch over to FAA, can we get anything? Doesn't really look like it, huh? Okay. Well, not a problem. Then we are just going to use our Navigraph charts instead. Okay, so here we are with the Navigraph charts for arrival into JFK, and we can start down here with the Part 3 arrival, and then looking into the airport chart. We are landing runway 31 today because of the wind, or we could actually go for 22 as well, so it's rather left open, but I'd say runway 22 is probably the little bit more likely right now, so let's go ahead and reprogram that in our FMS. So JFK arrival, ILS 22 left. Then we have the Part 3 coming in from Plym. Insert that, and we're inbound Plym already. Just about a mile before that, perfect. Don't ask me about that top of climb over there. That is definitely a bug. But we can't access the step climb page anymore, so we'll have to ignore that for the time being. The approach will be the ILS approach to runway 22 left today, but let's go ahead and start by checking the arrival itself. So coming in from Plym, next up we have Providence, then on towards Strait, which we're expecting at flight level 240, which is of course missing in here, so let's go ahead and insert that. So, Strait at 240. And then we continue via Parch on towards Calverton, 250 knots. And 12,000. Interestingly enough, that's also missing. Okay, then on towards Rover, which we're expecting at 9,000. and then via Crail towards Capit, and from there we're gonna get radar vectors towards the final. Overall, this is looking quite okay on our FMS here, so on to the ILS itself, coming in from Roseley in 3000. So, Roseley 3000, then we have Salpo 1800, and in case of missed approach, climb to 500, then climbing left turn to 3000, outbound JFK VOR radio 190 towards Chant. So we have 500 and then track 190, inbound to Chant 3000. Looks good. So we can tune the JFK VOR with the radial 190 selected as the course. On the progress page we will take our destination runway, so JFK to left. Performance, descent, that speed is looking good, so 0.81, 306 knots, I'm happy with that. And now let's go for the weather and the minimums. Minimum is easy, 212. And on the next phase we can already set the MSA for the go-around, which is 2000 feet, like that. Okay, then let's bring out the simulator's own EFB one more time. JFK, weather. So 1551, that is, yeah, not the very latest, but kinda okay. In the meantime, by the way, we can start our descent. Down to 25,000, please. And we've got descent alt flight level 250 blue. Okay, so for the weather conditions, we have QNH 3013. Temperature 6 and the wind 250 at 29. Now in theory, it should correct the V approach when we enter this wind by adding a third of the headwind. That should be 10 knots, so V approach should become 141. For some strange reason this one isn't doing it. We have 20 minutes of extra fuel on board, just like we have forecast, and the secondary flight plan can become a copy of the active. Auto brakes low, and that's it. So, are you ready for the approach briefing? And while we are about at it, seatbelt signs on. Okay, and then we can start with the briefing, please. Thank you. So, we are flying the Patch 3 arrival plumb transition into JFK. MSA 2000 feet on the approach area, and the approach will be an ILS onto runway 22 left with a minimum at 212 feet. In case of go-around, straight at 500, left turn radial 190 outbound JFK VOR climbing 3000, and extra fuel for 20 minutes. Thank you, that sounds good. Guidance for the approach will be flight directors on, manual flight, landing config full, stop margin some couple hundred of meters. Reversers will be used, auto brakes low, and we're vacating the runway to the right. I do not have any hotspots for the taxi in except for the runway crossing, so good look outside. And that's that. Special or non-standard operations? Well, nothing really, so do you have any threats? Yeah, of course we do have threats. And that is the weather. So, what are we gonna do about it? Well, the important thing here is the wind shear. If wind shear happens with your autopilot still engaged, thrust levers toga, keep the autopilot engaged, do not change the configuration until we are out of the wind shear. And here comes the little bit more interesting thing, that is what happens if we encounter the wind shear on the approach with manual thrust, or rather with manual flight. Well, if that should happen, we are going to, again, thrust levers toga, Follow the flight director's SRS orders, and that's the most important thing here. Follow the SRS orders and do not change the configuration ourselves over here. Now, if the go-around does become necessary because of a wind shear, then we are going to start the divergence straight away, because I can imagine that there will be more than just us diverting. Okay, thrust descent. So we'll just go over to Boston straight away, refuel over there, and then we can come back for a second attempt. Well, and that's it from my side. Do you have anything else? No? Okay, wonderful. Then let me say goodbye to our passengers. Liebe Gäste aus dem Cockpit, hier Kapitän. Wir haben den Sinkflug in Richtung New York gestartet mit einer verbleibenden Flugzeit von jetzt etwa einer halben Stunde. Das Wetter in New York aktuell relativ windig mit Winden aus Südwest. Wir erwarten daher einige Turbulenzen während des Anfluges, haben die Anschnellzeichen auch schon eingeschaltet und bitten Sie jetzt zu Ihren Sitzen zurückzukehren. Wir hoffen, dass Sie nichtsdestotrotz einen schönen Flugbiss hatten, wünschen Ihnen einen schönen Aufenthalt, gegebenenfalls eine gute und sichere Weiterreise und würden uns freuen, Sie bald wieder an Bord eines unserer Flugzeuge begrüßen zu dürfen. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon again from Flight Deck. This is your captain speaking. We've started our descent towards New York with a remaining flight time of about half an hour. The weather in New York currently a little bit windy, and this means we do expect some turbulence on our arrival. Therefore, we have already turned on the fasten seatbelt sign and request you to return to your seats now. Nonetheless, we would like to say thank you very much for choosing Swiss for today's flight. Hope you have enjoyed it as much as we did. We look forward to welcome you again on board of a future flight, and until then, we would like to say thank you very much for being our guests today. Enjoy the rest of your flight, and we would like to wish you a nice and safe continuous journey. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, that's our passengers dealt with. Then let's look forward to our arrival into New York, and I see you all a little bit later as we start our approach. We've already passed 10,000, so the lights are on, the signs are on, constraints selected, LS selected. We do have GPS primary with a high accuracy, and the start selector is in norm. So far so good. Let's go ahead and continue our descent down towards something around 3,000 or so for the time being. So that's alt constraint star, descent, and for now 9,000 magenta, and here we go. 3,000 blue. Very good, then let's go ahead and do what's probably most important on a day like this, and that's once again to verify the weather conditions. 260 at 26, gust 36. Altimeter now 3011, set QNH. 3011, cross check passing 8,500. Now, checked. Okay. So far so good. Then, frequency auto-tuned is 110.9, which is the correct ILS frequency. I got a little bit skeptical since I had to manually tune it a couple times when I initially got the simulator. If we look at the water down here, we can see all the swells already, which do tell us that it is a rather windy day, of course. But something I do really like when flying over areas with lots of water is just to have a look at the water itself, as it does give you a lot of information about what's actually going on outside. Just like, for example, wind turbines. So let's go ahead and go on a radar vector here. So, we'll start with heading 300. Thrust idle open descent heading. Extend the center line, please. So, out of Roseley, and that's going to be a radial in to... Actually, that's going to be 044. Yep, that looks about right to me. Full heading. Heading. Speed, vertical speed. Let's not get too low when we don't need to. Alright. So, that much about some of the basics over here. Now, let's take a moment to review the landing technique in conditions like these. So in general, our aircraft is equipped with the ground speed mini function, which is automatically going to vary the fly speed so that we are going to always get a wind corrected speed. What does that mean for today's approach? As we've already calculated, we have a VLS of 127 now, so 137 should be our V approach speed. Now, we gotta make sure that the latest wind is always in the box, so 260 at 26 today. And the aircraft is then always going to calculate the wind correction live and on the go. So that in an ideal case, we will remain with only very few thrust changes. However, especially under conditions like what we're experiencing today, the A330 auto throttle often struggles to actually maintain the airspeed, so we are going to go for manual thrust on that approach. It may seem counterintuitive to do that in the first place, but believe me, when you see an actual A330 auto throttle doing its thing, then you will be glad that you have manual thrust available. Now, we are definitely going to have some crosswind on the arrival. We can see the wind is coming from 260 at the moment, and that means that it is cross at around 40 degrees off. So, with 36 knots of wind over here, we are definitely going to have a rather significant crosswind component. I didn't do the exact math right now, but it should be somewhere in the region of around... Make that plus or minus 20 knots somewhere. So that is definitely an amount of wind that we've got to take into consideration. We don't need to worry about the crosswind limits, those still have a little bit of margin available to them, but nonetheless it is going to make for an interesting approach. Now, which technique are we going to use for the approach itself then? We are going to fly the approach in a crab angle, but since the runway is dry and I do not want to put my tires under too much stress, we will decrab the aircraft in the flare so that we align it with the runway and then touch down like this. However, when we do that, we got to apply some downwind aileron, or rather some upwind aileron, so that the wing that's facing into the wind goes a little bit low, so that we are not blown off the center line. And that is the approach technique recommended by Airbus for conditions like these. Alright, so that much about the basic theories of the arrival. Now the cabin should definitely be seated by now. That's the moment where we could give him a call just to verify it, because it will get rather turbulent when we get low enough. Especially looking out here, we can see a couple of hills with some trees and some rather wide clear areas. Perfect conditions to start encountering turbulence. The only good thing, the wind is coming from roughly the landing direction already, so at least that is nothing for us to worry about. And it is a headwind throughout most of the approach, so at least our speed management is going to be rather easy. Okay, time to stow your stuff here. Once we're level, I will activate the approach phase so that we can start to slow the aircraft down. Airbus does recommend to do it at 15 miles out. We're at 17 right now, so that looks pretty good to me. Alt star. Approach phase is active. VLS 127, the approach 10 knots higher than that. Looks fine to me. Alt. Now with that kind of wind, at around 2.5 or 2 miles from the center line, I will start to turn the aircraft onto the final. Checked. So, one more wind update, see what it's like right now. Still 260, 26, gust 36. Nice. That's how it's fun to fly. So, something I really like about judging your final turn is the cross-track error shown down here. And basically, once this is down at 2 miles, I am going to start my final turn here. So, 180 knots ground speed, that means we can nicely continue in clean configuration. Then turn left heading 250, cleared ILS approach. 2 left. CAT3 dual, autopilot 1 and 2, glide slope, localizer blue. Okay, then let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun. Autopilot off. Lock star. So, of course, we're landing right into the sun again. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Checked. Lock. So, field in sight over there, there's our landing runway. The pitch is again incorrect right now. In config 1 at the S speed we should be looking at about 9 degrees of pitch, so this is really off at the moment. I did talk to Anybuilds about that, and they said that it's a simulator limitation for the time being, so we'll trust them on that. Glide slope star. So I do want the approach to be stabilized as quickly as possible. Checked. Field elevation is 0, so at 2,500 on the altimeter we are going to continue our configuration. With a headwind like this, that shouldn't be any problem today. And here we go, flaps 2. Speed checked. Flaps 2. Gear down. Something you will definitely notice is that the A330 is very susceptible to gusts. The wings are made for the A340-300, which is around 30 tons heavier, so the A330 is actually rather overpowered with those wings and has far too much lift. Flaps 3. Speed checked, flap 3. And flaps full. Speed checked. Flaps full. Okay. Waiting for the cabin down there. And here we go. Landing checklist. Ecam memo. Landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. So, in weather like this, the key is not to move the side stick unless needed to correct for a change in trajectory. But apart from that, you just keep the aircraft doing its own thing as much as possible and just don't rape those controls. If you want to get yourself destabilized, then misbehavior on the controls is one of the prime reasons for that. Okay, manual thrust. The gusts definitely have that tendency to push us off track at the moment. Oh, our ILS just disappeared. Okay, well, land, flight director's off.
300.
And now it came back, okay. Because why not?
100 above.
Checked.
200. Minimum.
Continue.
100. 50. 40.
Okay, decrab.
10.
Bank it into the wind. And here we are. Okay, spoiler, reverse green, decel. Manual brakes. Look at that, we easily could make the first exit over here. Well, suppose they don't want us to occupy the runway for too long, so let's go out over here. That doesn't happen too often. But you could really see how we needed a little bit of bank into the wind there on the final in order to get the aircraft to not drift from the center line. And then in the last moment, in these conditions, just don't mess with it, just fly it right down onto that runway. And that is the correct procedure. Well, I tend to say this was a rather successful landing. Okay, the runway is vacated. I did already start the timer, you probably saw that. Starting the APU straight away as well, so that, well, a minute is over already, so once the APU becomes available, we can go for single engine taxi. After landing checklist, radar and predictive wind shear off. After landing checklist complete. Okay, approaching and crossing runway 22 right, and everything's clear on the approach. Strobe light on. So, left onto Alpha and then all the way to our terminal. It's always amazing how small those taxiways look up from here in the Airbus A330, or even larger aircraft such as the 747 or the 777. And when you sit in your 737 or your A320, they just look so incredibly huge. Okay, APU avail, and shut on engine 2. And now it's on Alpha all the way along to our parking gate. They made the turns a little bit wider here so that we can go a bit faster. No need to bring it down to 10 knots for things like these. And look at that, the silhouette of Manhattan in the background. Wonderful. This is exactly what it has to look like. Alright, so quick look at the parking chart. We are currently over here on Alpha and we'll go towards Terminal 1, entry via November. And then our gate is going to be one of those over here, 3, 5 or 7, depending on how accessible they are in the simulator. My favorite is going to be number 3, but we'll have to see about it. So, GSX Terminal. That's number 1. Looks like they're all accessible. Alright, so gate number 3 it is. No follow me needed. Handling by Swissport. Which has nothing to do with the fact that we're flying Swiss, by the way, but simply with the fact that Swissport is a global handling provider. So that's Mike over here. We go a little bit further. Thereafter comes Mike Alpha and then a right-hand turn and then on to November. So not this one, but the one thereafter. And then we're parking on the other side of that terminal over here. So the APU is running, everything is done, excellent. Now one of those typical New York things, we are on Alpha, but to continue on Alpha we gotta go to the right, cause straight ahead comes Quebec. Oh yeah, if you wanna annoy some pilots new to long haul flying, that's the way to do this. So, right on Alpha, then right into November over here, and then number 3 should be that stand over there. Speed is down at 10 knots. And actually, number 3, where is it? That one over there, okay. So, a little bit of power to make sure to keep the speed. If we stop in a congested apron like this one, while going single engine, then we can call for the tuck. Over here you can't really apply enough thrust in order to get yourself out of it again. So, that's the line for number 3. Lights off. Okay, the guidance system seems on, and I don't see any marshaller. That's alright. So make sure to keep it rolling now, but then again make sure not to get too fast. And stop. Very good. Park and brake set, APU bleed on, shut down. Cabin crew, all doors and park. Okay, are they disarming the slides? Yes, no, maybe? I'm waiting for them to disarm the slides, because that is the signal for us to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign, which in turn is the signal for them that they can open the doors, but looks like Builds might have programmed it differently. Let's see, if we put the seatbelt sign off, still nothing. Okay, well, they'll do it eventually. Parking checklist, please. Park and brake our trucks. Brake set. Engines off. Fuel pumps off. Parking checklist complete. Alright, so let's go ahead and get ourselves a jetway, get ourselves some shocks, which seems inoperative at the moment. They can already open the cargo doors. Looks like the jetway is going to door 2 left. Then we can open that one as well. So, transponder off, then fuel. That's a pretty even burn, a little bit more on number 1, that's fine. And the fuel distribution is a little bit less on the left side. I'm happy with that. 46.5 plus 7.5 roughly gives us our off-block fuel of 54 tons. Well, and the last thing for us to check. First of all, I'm gonna delete those stored waypoints, and then position monitor. The IRSs have run very, very well. I would expect them anywhere around, well, between 2 to 10 miles of drift. Those just don't seem to have drift simulated as they're stuck at 0.1, but that's fine for me. So, with all of that out of the way, welcome to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport. I do hope that you have all enjoyed the flight with us. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments below, as I'm really looking forward to it. Let me know if you want me to do more flights like this in the Airbus A330. And as always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.